You won't believe what's been quietly sitting in plain sight for years, and why it suddenly won't stay buried anymore. For half a decade, this story has been labeled toxic. Mention it, and you were mocked, dismissed, or lumped in with the internet's wildest corners. Yet here we are, years later, watching the same allegation crawl back into the spotlight. Not because it was resurrected by rumor, but because the people who once refused to touch it are now cautiously admitting, yes, we're looking at that. So, the real question isn't just whether the allegation is true. It's why so many powerful institutions worked so hard to make sure no one ever found out. At the center of it all is Ilhan Omar, a sitting member of Congress, a political figure surrounded by layers of protection from media, party leadership, and federal silence. The allegation tied to her is extreme, so extreme most people rejected it instantly. The claim? That she entered into a fraudulent marriage with her own brother to secure immigration status. Too outrageous to be real, right? That's what nearly everyone thought at first, including me. But here's the part that won't go away. If the allegation were completely false, it should have been easy to kill. One clean document dump, one airtight explanation, case closed. Instead, 5 years passed, no definitive debunk, no transparent release of records, just silence, ridicule, and institutional stonewalling. And now, the silence is cracking. With a change in political power, long dormant files are being revisited. Investigators are no longer whispering, and one former top border official is suddenly speaking with a level of confidence that makes people sit up straight. That official is Tom Homan. For years, Tom Homan wouldn't touch this topic publicly. Asked directly, he'd deflect with the standard line, "I can't discuss ongoing matters." Washington speak for, "I know, but I'm not allowed to say it." Fast forward to now, and the tone has shifted completely. In a recent televised interview, Homan acknowledged that he was personally briefed by a senior investigator specializing in immigration fraud, not a junior analyst, but someone who reviewed the actual file. According to Homan, that investigator concluded immigration fraud did occur. That single statement changes everything. Homan went further. He explained that the statute of limitations became a roadblock during the last administration, right around the time this story resurfaced publicly. He didn't name names. He didn't have to. The implication was clear. Politics dictated what could be pursued and what had to be ignored. Now, with that political barrier gone, Homan says records are being retrieved and the case is being actively reviewed. Not hypothetically, not someday. Now. And here's where the story widens. According to sources discussed in the same interview, Omar's case may not be an isolated incident. Investigators are reportedly examining a broader visa pipeline tied to a specific refugee community in Minnesota. One claim, still unproven, but deeply alarming, suggests that as many as half of the visas processed through this network may involve some form of fraud. If even a fraction of that is accurate, this isn't a single scandal, it's a systemic failure. That brings Minnesota into focus. Over the last few years, the state has been rocked by massive fraud cases tied to public programs. Each time auditors dig deeper, the scale grows, and each time, leadership waves it off as misunderstanding or misplaced criticism. The governor, Tim Walz, has repeatedly framed these revelations as growing pains of generosity. But critics argue the pattern is too consistent to ignore. So when Ilhan Omar suddenly appears everywhere, friendly interviews, safe platforms, zero pushback, people start asking uncomfortable questions. Is this coincidence, or is it damage control? Homan's message suggests it's the latter. He's made it clear this isn't about one marriage certificate anymore. He's heading to Minnesota to examine the entire system. Illegal entries, fraudulent visas, individuals flagged for national security concerns, student visas, work programs, temporary permits, no category is off limits. According to Homan, This review was personally directed at the highest level, with one goal: accountability, including deportations where the law allows. That word, deportations, lands hard. To understand how dramatic this shift is, you have to rewind just a few months. In an earlier interview, activist commentator Laura Loomer pressed Homan on the same allegations. Back then, he refused to answer directly. He did, however, admit that authorities were aware of the situation. Now, he's openly confirming that files are being pulled and examined. The difference is night and day. Which brings us to a disturbing chapter that many people never heard in full. Journalist Miranda Devine previously reported that Republican operatives in Minnesota didn't rely on rumors. They hired private investigators, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, traveled across multiple continents. Their goal was simple: determine whether Omar's second husband was biologically related to her. According to Devine, investigators eventually obtained physical DNA samples allegedly linked to the man in question, a discarded cigarette, and a drinking straw. Those samples were sent to a lab. The reported conclusion? A sibling-level DNA match. Then everything fell apart. On the very day those findings were allegedly set to be made public, one of the central figures involved, Anton Lazaro, was arrested on unrelated charges. His website vanished. The evidence disappeared from public view. The investigation collapsed overnight. Devine claims federal authorities were briefed on the DNA results, but declined to act, citing the statute of limitations. True or not, that sequence raises serious questions. So, when Tom Homan now says investigators are revisiting old files, it doesn't sound like the start of something new. It sounds like the reopening of something deliberately shut down. And that's the heart of this story. This was never just about Ilhan Omar. It's about how power shields itself, how allegations don't disappear because they're false, but because they're inconvenient, how evidence can be sidelined, investigations stalled, and critics discredited not by accident, but by design. Now, that shield appears to be cracking. There are only two possible endings here. Either this investigation collapses under scrutiny and finally delivers the clear answers the public was denied, or it confirms what many fear, that America operates on two sets of rules, one for regular people and one for those protected by politics. Either way, the truth is finally being chased. If you're watching this unfold and wondering how something this big stayed hidden for so long, you're not alone. Stay curious. Stay skeptical. And if you want more deep dives like this, stories others are afraid to touch, make sure you support the conversation. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. This one isn't over.